Welcome, and thank you so very much for joining me on another episode of Talking Cloud. Now, you know, this is where we talk about anything, everything cloud, but come on, that's anything, everything computing, right? I mean, the fact of the matter is there's really not much in the world of compute that doesn't touch the cloud. And that's why we're talking about it. Now, you know, I've said it so many times, I always live up to it. I'm just the Gilligan in this equation. But man, I always get some amazingly brilliant, bright, smart, talented people. And man, today the stars aligned for me today because I got an awesome guest. I imagine all of you, or very close to all of you, know him, or certainly the work that he does. Oded is somebody who I was just telling him before we hit record, you know, I feel like we're so much better friends than we really are. But like he said, I think it's the way the universe lines up, because I said, I could tell you, I love you, man. This guy, he's a brilliant, personable, his energy is amazing. And he's been in this business a long time. He's the chief technologist and head of product vulnerability research for Checkpoint today. Been with the company a long time. We'll hear about that. But the guy what's special about Oded, in my opinion, is you'd see him and you'd think he's like, you know, the rhythm guitar player in a band or something. But then he starts to talk to you and you realize, oh my God, he's so far much deeper in the cave than you. You need to turn your headset on because you got to go find him. I mean, the guy is really amazing. So I'm super jazzed to welcome Oded Vanunu to the program and have a chat with you, man. Hey, it's so good to see you. Thank you for hanging out late at the office to talk with me.
Yeah, no problem. It's like my pleasure. I waited for that, and I happy, and I feel the same. Again, like you feel, you know, it's like you always been inspiration for me in terms of like how you take the most important things and educate the entire ecosystem, and eventually the bottom line on cybersecurity is awareness. That's it.
It's so
The
true.
the state sponsors, the state sponsors and the hackers, if they want, they will do that.
You know, that I have said for so long, and it's every new product that goes in, what's the first thing you got to be able to do? You got to be able to see it. You're right. You have to be aware of it. You have to have visibility into what's going on before anything.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, and you know, obviously doing what you do, you understand that. But what I find fascinating, and I guess what I'd like to I'm going to jump in probably in the deep end and drown. So you'll have to pull me out if I get over my head. But I find it amazing that there are at least as I think it through, there are very few, and I've been in this, you know, opened an Apple dealership in 1983 with a guy. So it's a long time seeing this. And it just seems like there's not too many aspects of our industry, our life, that's equal to what we're up against in terms of always have an enemy that's trying to better us. Right, as opposed to peace talks, and we eventually all agree. Right, that's never going to happen in what we do. And so I think of it. You know, again, I'm an analogy guy, but you know, they say. I mean, obviously, my fingers aren't touching, right? But they say they're not touching now either, and that's what I think about what you are up against.
Yeah.
That the old days of research, you know, you could see the gap, but now complexity is so high, interconnectivity is so ubiquitous. Everything is connected. It's all now in the cloud, right? We don't have just a front door and a back door and some windows we lock. It's available anytime, 24/7. And so when I think of what you do, it just blows my mind to think that we're going to continue to have less space, but yet space that we'll need to close. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely, and yeah, it's absolutely, and I don't know like from where to begin. So like let's first of all talk about top to down. So yes, in the last 10 years, we are on a warfare. This is the
Mm-hmm.
situation, okay? And I will explain why we are in a warfare. And there is like two dimension in the real world. There is like the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone lives in peace. Everyone has like nice applications, nice life, communicating. However, there is another dimension of the cyber warfare. And the cyber warfare is is aggressive. It's aggressive, and the reason for that is that in the last 10 to 15 years, states moved from conventional warfare into cyber warfare.
How
They
much of that?
understood.
How much of that do you believe the starting point or the launch point or the key, nexus apex was Stuxnet?
Um,
I mean, I've heard that when it
it's like
became known, it was like it was the uncorking of the bottle for for both sides.
so I will, stuck next. I only read on books and stuff like that. So I don't know like what is like the right moment to say it. But from things that I see in my day-to-day work, we need to understand that how things really work. As I said, like 10, 15 years ago, government started to shift budget from conventional warfare into cyber warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And what is like cyber warfare? It's not like physical guns, weapons, cannons,
Right.
aircraft, jets. These are binary codes that are seamless. However, once they started to shift the budgets for cyber warfare, so that means that they need ammunition.
Mm.
And what it means that I need ammunition as a state sponsor. So first of all, I can develop ammunition in-house.
Mm-hmm.
So that took states and governments and start spend billions of dollars to create in-house cyber warfare units
Yeah.
that their job
Technical
is to
expertise, right?
no,
Like,
it's to create weapons, to
right.
create cyber weapons. And a huge market started to roll up, a legitimate white hat ecosystem that basically supply 0 days to governments. There is a public price list available in the internet that you can say, if you have, for example, iOS 0-click remote code execution, it's worth today around $3 million for this exploitation.
Mm.
So what happened is that each government started to develop their own weapons and started to open requests for buying weapons. So
Mm.
now take just one example of government, one government that doing it, and now multiple it
Yeah.
for every government around the world. Every government has different size, different budget, and then we are on a cybersecurity arm race in the
Yeah.
last 10 years.
Yeah. But nobody hears it, nobody sees it unless you're in
The-
it. I mean, this is
exactly,
your point
exactly.
you made. One of the things I'll just interject, but I want to keep hearing.
Yeah.
I've said for years that if the American population, or any country for that matter, where its enemy was lining up on the border, lining up on the coastline, floating dozens of ships along the waterline, whatever,
That's easy.
the country that would respond, right? They'd see it, they'd and you would, right? And the analogy or
Yeah,
example I use
it's
is if
clash. Yeah.
if China was coming into underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, all hell would break loose if one of their, right. But in fact, that is happening all the time,
Mm,
and
and
the
with much more
majority,
state implications.
exactly, but the majority of the population is really just oblivious to it. That's why nobody,
Exactly.
and so it's a really interesting dynamic on top of, I find it fascinating. So what you're telling me, if I hear it right, is decade or two ago, countries said, "Hey, I'm gonna hire a bunch of smart whippersnappers and sharp people to build the weapons, the ammo, right?" But then at the same time, this whole creation of a marketplace where it's literally, "Hey, if you can come up with it, I'll give you money." And it's not for positive, but it's in fact for nefarious use. But it could be, you could be advertising to the good guys,
Like exactly. And now each government,
and they are.
the, no, and now each government, it's like take it in 10 years, like of snowball. It's
Yes.
huge. It's huge economic.
Yep.
Okay, and that means that there is always a race for 0 days. Okay,
It's the
and
money, right?
then exactly, but it's like
Yeah.
capabilities. It's like capabilities. If you have a 0 day, for example, if you're a state sponsor and you have a 0 day for iOS or Android, that means that you can attack millions or billions of people. However, a state sponsor will use these vulnerabilities only for very specific targets. Okay, this is like the, but I want to put like the government and state sponsor now in the side, because they were like initiating the wave,
Yeah, that's
and then
interesting.
and then what happened again? What happened again in the last 10 years? Cybercrime was transforming from activists that doing simple defacement
Mm-hmm.
and nothing, and then they realized, okay, now that there is like a cryptocurrency, I can attack someone and get ransom.
Mm-hmm.
So they managed to understand that, okay, we can use the cyberspace to cash out.
Mm-hmm.
And today, cybercrime are more powerful sometimes than governments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because cybercrime in the last 10 years become organizations, and each organization has like CEO, CTO that's responsible for all the weapons, operation manager that's responsible to take the weapons and put them on the infection points. And this is why we see campaigns that like list for like 1 month. They know what they are doing. And then there is a CFO that basically makes sure to launder the money and take the cryptocurrency and transfer it to the fiat.
Wow.
And there is like brokers that buy the assets and buy the access. So it's huge markets that, starting with state-sponsored governments that attacking every
Yeah,
day,
that's fascinating how
and then we have
that
this.
it's like again, I'm sorry analogy, but I think of COVID. I think
Yeah,
of something like, research, supposedly under the guise of, some government doing something. Really, we know it's biowarfare, and they're trying to figure out how to kill somebody, and that stuff gets out the door.
yeah,
And now all of a
and
sudden, this is not exactly the same, but I see similarities in that, the government's influence, and then ultimately it leaks out and creates an entire friggin'
ex-
industry.
exactly, and it's like governments and cybercrime, basically they are performing their objective, but they are performing their objective our network. We don't have like
Right.
another
Right.
internet. They are
Yeah.
playing in our infrastructure. So we are like the ones that was like, and this is why
Mm.
we as a cybersecurity company, we must understand exactly what's going on. We must have the intelligent capabilities and sophistication to really see the attacks on real time and be able to prevent them, first of all, and then make sure that we can automatically can create actionable security through
Yeah.
AI.
You know,
Uh,
man, for me, you're a special guy.
thank
And I
you.
mean you and the researchers, because this is where I just am always amazed, because you know, in my earlier analogy about the space gets narrower and narrower theoretically, of course, um, you know, there's always something new someone built, so there's some potential exploit. If a human built it, you know, they probably built it wrong somehow, some way, right? There's that. But I think it's also how you look at the world. You know, I remember a quote years ago, and I can't even, you know, I apologize, I can't credit it properly, but it was, and I'll mash it up, but it was something like, if you want something to change, don't expect it to change. Look at it differently.
Mhm.
And you know, by looking at it differently, it will change. It will be different.
Yeah.
And that's what I think about when I think about what you do,
Mhm.
because you know, so many of us, you know, Gilligan included, you know, we go through our modus operandi in life is not necessarily to think in each and every step, what would the bad guy do here? How could I exploit this? Look how shitty they did this,
Mhm.
man. You know, and that's a that's just a different capability that
Yes.
you know, and I don't think
Yeah.
that's something that I think, you know, I
This,
wonder, you know, how much
this
of
is the
it's cultural, you know, because there's certainly, you know, not to get off into that, but I just was speaking the other day about how, because of my long tenure in this industry, and you know, being with Checkpoint back when they had 400 whatever employees, and the disposition and global view of Israel then and today, and how, you know, I mean, honest to God, man, Israel's kicking out of everybody in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of understanding this space. In my opinion, they're unequivocal leaders. And and so, you know, come on, let's
uh,
face it, man. You guys have been fighting peoples all around you that hate you. And so you know, it just, I find it interesting that here now you are prevailing in the cyber world ahead of everyone in terms of your ability to stay one step ahead of the bad guys, or at least stay in the race.
yeah, but again, like all this, like starting from education, starting from awareness, and I believe that
Yeah, that's a good point.
every entity that will spend money on subject and but you know, I can you know, it's like I can compare it also to other things, you know. If but specifically, if we talk about Israel, yes, Israel in the last 20 years are spending a lot on the concept of cybersecurity, and Israel become hub that produce, as far as I think,
The most amazing shit.
the like the most cybersecurity defense solutions or startups or ideas or companies.
Yeah. But there's also
But
some interesting, you know, Pegasus, you know, and some other stuff, right?
yeah,
On the flip side,
yeah,
right?
but again, like if you link it to, you know, it's like this is like offense is like offense side. I was never like admiring to to do offensive illegal stuff. But let's face it, okay?
It's
This
out
is
there.
exactly no, but it's like exactly connected to the point that we speak. Eventually, as I said, the ones that requested or wanted to have the ability to use spywares and these capabilities are governments.
Yeah.
They are the one that initiate the
That's
request,
right.
and the
That's exact.
offensive companies are selling for governments.
Yeah. It's funny.
The
It's
paradox,
right
the
back there though.
paradox, yeah,
Yeah.
the paradox is that sometimes these weapons are leaked and being and being like leaked and being like discussed once someone find it, but initially the creation of these tools are for governments.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are paying for that.
And you're exactly right. And that's, as much as I read and understand about Stuxnet, I mean, the only reason it got discovered, right, was the guys over in the Benelux, Amsterdam or somewhere over there. What I found fascinating
This
about
is
that
what they
code,
like the book saying, or it's like there is no evidence for that. Yeah.
yeah, well, that is from what I understand about reading about it.
Yeah.
It was targeting a very specific Honeywell controller, only
Yeah.
one. So it was installed all around the world, but lay dormant because it wasn't the right one.
Yeah,
And that
this
just
is like,
shows that this level of sophistication
yeah,
is
but
just
like
unbelievable.
if that was right, like we see that methods like every day in malwares, we
Yeah.
see a lot of times malwares that they are looking for a keyboard input, and if they are seeing like a Russian keyboard input, they are not unleashed. There are funny things.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like
And
this is
and
like we call it the kill chain.
hmm,
Like and you talk about things like, but for me, like solar wind, it's
right.
piece of art. That was like piece of art in terms of exploitation, according to what we read and etc.
Explain why it's a piece of art to you.
Because that was like the first time that very, very sophisticated deep supply chain attack that was targeting governments, entities, was
Yeah.
executed.
Yeah.
And the way that it was found through Microsoft, through others, through Mandiant, and the company that was attacked really didn't know that they were like attacked,
Right.
only like after the exploitation. So this is, first of all, provide us like the sophistication of seamless and the 0 days that state sponsor are using to do literal movement, and they understand today that in order to have like very effective infection, you need to go for the repositories. You need to start attack the supply chain, because that is the easy way
Mm-hmm.
to get into organizations in a transparent way. And that was also created the new market in the blockchain, sorry, in the security, in the cybersecurity, that provided solutions for supply chain
Yeah.
end-to-end, CI/CD, SDLC,
Yeah.
like to
Well,
take
even
the
our
entire.
friends Ox, right? I mean, didn't isn't
Yeah,
Ox doing supply chain?
yeah, there is like a lot of companies, yeah, and
A lot of
also
them,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I agree with you.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So we are like in a very fascinating era, and I didn't mention, like in the last year I've been investigating like the usage of cybercrime with malicious LLMs. We are very excited from our advantage on the LLM in our ecosystem in the
Yeah.
conventional industry. However, again, as you said at the beginning, I am always, me and my staff, always thinking from the hacker perspective.
Right.
So the hackers are very, very advanced with the LLM. So they took the LLMs and weaponized them.
Yes.
And the most consuming part from research perspective for cyber crime activities is three steps. First of all, is to gather intelligence on the target, like to get the entire digital artifactory, what servers, what access, what users, what platforms, etc., etc. And then after you have all this information, you start to look of or start to weaponize what weapon will exploit what scenario, and start to build scenario and start to build the weapon. And then once you build that, you test it on a sandbox environment, on isolation environment, so that the weapon will not be leaked.
Hmm.
These three steps before the attack are the most consuming in terms of cybercrime, meaning that they can take weeks or
Right.
months. The malicious LLM are focusing on these three steps and reduce it to hours.
Yeah.
So that means that we already seeing the number of attacks are dramatically increased,
Yeah.
and
I
that means
saw
that
I saw a number 14, over 1,400% increase in just phishing since 2023, and the whole, chat GPT phenomenon really hit the
yes,
world.
so what we are seeing is that the volatility of the attacks are increasing now and will be increased dramatically. However, currently at this state, there is no like special. There is no 0 days or special attack vector that the AI have been initiated. It just like facilitate and make like the entire attack flow very
Yeah.
short.
They're greasing the pipe now.
Yeah,
So putting
yeah,
that pig through the pipe, it's flying way
mm,
faster because they're greasing the pipe. I
yeah,
totally. So let me
and
ask you, I,
mhm.
and I'm more, I guess, curious if this is something I've hypothesized and actually suggested that it's not outside the realm of possibility that the bad guys, the malicious, have created an LLM that has been trained specifically on CVEs that are high and critical, with all of the corresponding platform, best way to exploit, to really, because there's over 200, 300,000, whatever, known high and vulnerable CVEs within our space. We see and hear those numbers all the time. So it doesn't seem that far out of to leverage AI and give it all of that information so that it can then say, hey, the best way to exploit is dot 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 dot.
So basically, you are right, and again, we are now in a revolution. We are in a revolution that cyber space or cyber defense will be totally different
Yeah.
in 5 6 years from now.
Yep.
And we are seeing the revolution. Now we are on the phase one, which I call it the prompt phase, where the bad guys taking the AI prompts, AI LLMs, and
Yep.
weaponize them, train them with malicious content. What is malicious content? All the public information, GitHub, Metasploit, all the web pages with all the CVEs and exploitation. There is like endless repositories. There is like database leak. There are
Yeah.
like users leaks. There are like billions of information being leaked. So basically, what the hackers are doing, they are training their LLMs with this data. We are seeing even that they are using this LLM as a service. They sell the service for people that they can use that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is currently the phase that we are looking.
Any
But
way to monetize. They are the most innovative and clever
exactly,
on ways to monetize, right?
yes, and we need to. The rules are very specific, and people always forget. In cybersecurity, The ones that are innovating are the hackers. And then
Right.
the industry is catching the gap. Okay?
That's right.
So
That's exactly right.
so this is why if you are very close to the bad guys in terms of research,
Yeah.
then you have the capability to be one step ahead and to think about innovation
Yep.
and things. And this is what I'm trying to do all the time.
There's
But
I have a present. Oh, go ahead.
just to finish like the last sentence, so we are going, as I said, we are now in phase one of the agent. I will not, there is like few phases that I already shared in RSA, but I can share. But eventually, in 5 years from now, what we are building is that offense for sure will be fully automated, fully based on LLM.
Mm,
However, the way that we will look on defense will be totally different. It will be also based on LLM,
mm,
meaning that eventually we will have LLM vs LLM.
yeah.
And that will be the core of the attacks and the core of the decision. We will look differently on internet packets. We will look differently on attacks.
Yep.
Attacks will be looked not in the way of stateful inspection that you need to open each packet and see what's going on. We will look on packets on TCP/IP in a fingerprint way,
Mm,
and then we can understand like if the whole packet is malicious or not.
mm,
It's very interesting.
mm, mm. It's fascinating to me. What I was going to mention is, you're talking about the bad guys. They're always the early adopters. They're always the innovators that exploit new technology first. And what I tell people, I have a presentation where I stole it from my boss, and there's some images of hands, right? And it's from a few years ago, and the hands have 6, 7 fingers, and they're just dreadful, right? But this was what we got when we asked for a hand 2 years ago, because that was, it didn't really know. It was guessing as best it could, and it didn't know. Is there 4 or 5 or 6 fingers and a thumb or no thumb, right? That was because it was guessing.
Mm-hmm.
And today, right, amazing hands. They're brilliant. They're perfect. And my point is, the bad guys didn't care there were 6 fingers on the hand. If it was successful, they were trying it. Where we would go, oh, wait, Oded, there's 6. That's not right. We got to do this over. We got to start over, right? We're not going to use it. And I think that's kind of an example of how they will see a new opportunity, and even if it's not perfect, if it's successful, they're gonna do it until we catch up and go, wait, that we have to have something that
Yeah, yeah,
identifies 6
yeah.
finger
Yeah,
hands.
this is like called negative testing, by the way, or negative, meaning that you know that the feature is like looking for 5 fingers, then you send them like 7, 8. And usually, what happens in software development is that when you send 7 or 8, you're probably causing a buffer overflow. And this is what we like as attackers. We we
See,
like
look at,
the
you're already going,
yeah
hey,
yeah. Always
yeah,
the developers are building the software to get 5, and then you send 8, and you crash the software, and then this is the exploit. Eventually, offensive exploitation is you want to send some kind of payload, and the one that take the packet and start to play with it, this is
yeah,
the place that you exploit and use the permission.
yeah.
This is the games, but you can do literal and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it's so much different, but it reminds me back in the early days. I I think with Microsoft Word there was this goofy, 7 finger salute that when you hit all of the keys at the same time, it would it would say "fuck you, Bill Gates" or something like that on the screen, right? And it was
There
something
was
that they,
like the
an Easter egg, right? What they
yeah,
call, where
yeah.
some developers, they put it all in, but you had to know that
Yeah.
crazy combination.
You
But
remember?
that really highlights to me how challenging it is, especially today with the complexity, to QA, to test, to really know if you've left a hole or somewhere, because of there's so much to test. And when you know QA's running through it, and they're not testing goofy stupid things, they're testing how you would use the tool and if it's working, right? That game is also very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. It's a game of interesting, but yeah, but you can eventually if you have good processes, good understanding, so you enter in. This is exactly why we have SDLC, Secure Development Lifecycle.
Right.
The goal was always, in the past, the security were coming only after the integration, after the processes of like all the code was done, and then
Yeah. Let's
it's
make
hard
sure
to
it's
get
secure.
security.
Yeah.
Today, as if you enter security to the development, to the design phases as organization, you win.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, let me ask you. I know this is an area you're working on, so I'd love to hear um, blockchain. The promise that blockchain offers, and certainly the whole
Yeah,
world of.
this is my book, by the way.
Oh, I didn't see it. Well, cyber
Yeah,
hacking.
yeah.
Awesome.
Cyber and hacking in the
Hey,
world
look
of
at
blockchain
there.
and
Get
crypto.
that on
Yeah.
Amazon and at your local bookstore. Uh,
No, but
I love it.
this is like a story. This is like exactly the innovation on blockchain that we were like hunting cyber campaigns, and then we saw some kind of state sponsor slash North Korea attacking some Web3 or blockchain infrastructure, and then we started to understand like what they are doing there, and then we saw huge gap.
Hmm.
We saw that in general, the Web3 blockchain in general, the one that developed the platforms and the software, there is a huge gap on security understanding. But it's very, very important to say the problem is not with the blockchain. Once there is a transaction that been validated, that been approved, cryptographic and mathematical, and
Yeah.
it's written in the block, that's it. You cannot change the data. You need to look on blockchain as a distributed ledger, okay?
Yeah.
And the difference between blockchain technology and the current technology that we use as a database, that every record in the blockchain is being public available, it's been decentralized, and it cannot be changed. No one can change the data.
Indelible. Yep.
Yeah. Where like in our the way that we work today in centralized systems, me as an attacker, I will get to the database. I will always get the privilege to the database, and then I'm changing everything.
Right. Right.
Okay, so in terms of security, you cannot compare them.
Right.
Okay,
The
the
integrity of the
you
blockchain
you
far
cannot
just it's.
compare them.
Yep.
Far different.
Yep. Yep.
However, the problems began from the blockchain and the Web3 as the same concept of client and server.
Mm-hmm.
In Web2, the client server are browser and application. Okay, the browser send traffic, the application rendering it and send back to the user. In the blockchain, we have client and server. The client is wallet based on browser, and the server is smart contract. Like this is the application.
Mm.
And once the wallet discuss with the smart contract the application, it send a transaction. Transaction is a different word for packets. Transaction as source, destination, and data.
Yeah.
However, in cybersecurity, when I have data, that means that I can start to exploit because someone reading my data. It can be the wallet or it can be the application. And once
Right.
someone read my data, I can exploit it. So basically what we did is that we saw the huge gap of understanding, and me and the two team members, we decided, first of all, write a book about all the attack vectors and help the developers. So this is what we done. Second, as things that we are doing, we came with idea how to solve the problems in blockchain, how to create the first prevention firewall. What we saw is that all the solution or all the things that's currently starting to build are only relevant for post-exploitation, meaning that someone send a malicious
Stealing my
transaction,
trying to
stealing
stealing
$600
my
million,
wallets, trying to steal my Bitcoin. Yep.
stealing $600 million, and then the investigation start, and then all
Yep.
the...
Yep.
We build technology that basically once transaction is being sent on-chain, meaning to start like discuss with wallets, smart contract, validators, before it gets to the blockchain network, we doing verdict. And we built very, very sophisticated AI engine capabilities that basically know how to look on transaction and to understand if the transaction is malicious or not. And if it's malicious, they are doing prevention. And it's not continuing to the validator, to the exploitation, and to be blocked.
Wow.
So and we already have design partner with the Cardano, which is top 10 blockchain network in the world, and we have more prospect coming very soon. So again, we saw the problem on the real time that the hackers are doing, and my responsibility is to innovate. This is the gift I got from this universe.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome, man.
I'm very excited that I'm basically initiating to create and to make standard of the first blockchain firewall, which I think we can easily solve it, and this is what we're doing.
That's fascinating.
Because if I'm looking like few years from now,
yep,
everything will be tokenized. Papers are not relevant. Everything will be tokenized. Everything will be transacted. Like every country today have stablecoin, and that this is the network.
Yeah. Well, obviously our current administration has really gotten much more pro
Yes.
Bitcoin, pro cryptocurrency, and I think it's I guess in a word inevitable. It's gonna continue. I think how much. It seems like blockchain has so many wonderful things to offer. And the concern about size, in terms of, file size and storage size, is that an issue at all in the world?
No.
It's kind of becoming a non-issue anyway now, just because storage is like.
Yeah. So it's very we need to understand that basically blockchain is a technology. Cryptocurrency is one show from the blockchain capabilities, meaning that as far as I see it, governance like elections in the near future will be done with decentralized. This is the only way you can approve integrity. Second, every logistic management application, it's like if you transfer assets, like cargoes, like ships, like if you buy tickets, everything will be in a decentralized networks, meaning that I can buy tickets and I can sell it to you, and that means that's all the as I said, governance, city hall, all the things that services to the users, everything will be moved to the blockchain. And of course there is technologies for private blockchain.
Yeah.
Moreover, healthcare.
Mm.
Healthcare today, each one has its own, like, I don't know, like is application of that he can use on a specific medical center or specific entity.
Mm-hmm.
And the entity, they are the one that's responsible for your private information, your private health
Yep.
information. So it's not make sense. It makes sense that I have my identity,
Yep.
and my identity is in centralized network. And if I go to one entity and to the second entity and I'm doing services,
It's just still me.
it's still me.
It's just one me. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree with you more. I'm thinking in my head when you go to
and you know
healthcare,
what,
man.
and you know what will be the boom? What will change everything? And this is something that's, it's like, you can call it like metaverse, but it will be more like the virtual reality, not virtual reality, the
Augmented reality.
Augmented reality. And I have already the Meta Ray-Ban, and
Yep.
I looked on many also Meta Quest and all things.
I bought some Hallidays.
And
did you
yes.
see Halliday? That's the one that's got the little
exactly.
And I haven't got them yet, but I'll let you know when I do.
So think about it, Grant. Like this is our gate to the digital world.
Again,
so this is like, this is today our interface.
Yep.
To the digital world. Okay.
Yep.
This is the gate. Like if you want to go to the virtual world, this is the gate that we are using. But each year, what innovation there is on that space? More like a better picture.
Yep.
More like better camera, more like buttons here to make more functionality.
Diminishing
that
return
is like that
from
is like
totally
exactly.
Agree.
And
challenge
the problem
has always been the screen.
No, yeah, and but this is like this real estate is not relevant anymore. Think about it, that in 2-3 years from now, everyone will have glasses that will have augmented reality. And when we talk to you, and when I will see people on the streets, if I want to send a message or I want to poke them, it will be tokenized. You know what I mean? It's like I move assets, I move things, I move like. And the blockchain and the AI, the infrastructure is ready for that, and the technology.
I see. It's, to me, again, it's the metaphor of it's turning it inside out. What we've been building is, there's one me, but I'm duplicated in every doctor's office, at every hospital. I'm right. So it's not just one me. Now there's fucking all kinds of me's they're fat me's and skinny me's. And
there's me through Google, there's me through Facebook, there's me through Instagram. I have a lot of SSO.
But I'm talking about like the records that a doctor has that I saw, and I'm 148 or 58 or, I mean, those, nothing's consistent right now other than me. And so to be able to turn that around and have an infrastructure that allows me to share me digitally, and then have an audit trail that says, I gave me to Providence Hospital at 2:38 this afternoon for an appointment, right? And not have anybody be able to quit that or change it or modify it or say, hey, you didn't go to the doctor. Yes, I did. It's right there. I mean, that sounds exciting in some ways.
And I will make it much more simple for you. In the beginning of the internet, we had Web 1. Web 1 was only static information. You can see information that was sitting on the server.
It was
Web 2 was...
Listen, Web 1, I'll just tell you a funny joke. When I went to go to work I went to interview with Scott McFarlane. You maybe remember Scott McFarlane, okay?
Yeah.
When I went to interview him at MetaInfo, I couldn't spell DNS. Okay, Oded. I mean, I kid you not. And I knew this was the first to port bind to Windows because I read it on the website. And I literally printed, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit this,
No, that's
printed
okay.
every single page of their website and then subsequently went on and read it. But we were in that transition, and I'm old,
Yeah,
so I was
but no,
very
but
accustomed to it.
Grant,
But that was all it was a printed now
yeah, but
online.
Grant, like it's more than that. Don't defend yourself. But remember that once the internet was like there and it was like the only static, we got practice from school and life to take papers, to read them and to remember them. This is what we learned, and this is exactly what you did, and this is why
Mm,
Web 1 was perfect. You have the pages, you print them, you learn them, and then we had Web 2, what we have today. And Web 2 is read, write, and publish. That was changing the entire internet.
mm-hmm.
And what is Web 3? Exactly what we were excited from. Read, write, and own.
Mm,
I'm on the data.
mm.
Why my data is being owned
Yeah,
by
yeah, interesting. The
by
publish
Meta,
versus
by
own. Yeah,
TikTok?
yeah.
I
It's
own
almost
this
it's a
data. It's
share,
me.
right? It's not a
It's me. It's
publish.
my data.
Yeah,
So
fascinating.
decentralized, this is exactly the infrastructure that allows you to own digital
If
assets. And digital
we're
assets can,
there, I mean, from when because when I think of the pieces that need to be there, I need ubiquitous connectivity, 5G. We're there. I need the ability. I mean, it feels like
no, it's there. It's like
everything's in place.
Web3 integration. It's like being integrated to many. It's like it's not an issue. What is like Web3? What is blockchain? It's just like a protocol, RPC.
Mm-hmm.
Like today we have like hype with MCP
Yep.
of AI.
Yep.
So blockchain discussed with RPC. RPC communication. You have a client software browser. You just
Yep.
add RPC protocol and it connects to the networks. That's it.
Mm.
It's not like an challenge anymore today.
Interesting. Sounds. I mean, future's exciting. Hold that book up again, because I think it's I would
You see it
definitely want to.
opposite?
Yeah. What's
Or
that? No, I see it
no?
perfectly. I see it
Okay.
perfectly. So that's great, and I think it's cool the fact that you put it out there with an emphasis on sharing with the development community. Hey,
Yeah, it's
we gotta
like
fix
all
this
from
so we can
perspective.
use it, right?
So this book has like attacker perspective, but I'm always providing the software developer perspective.
Nice. That's very cool. Very cool.
Where is the mismatch? Where is the gap? Because the attackers are much more advanced.
Yep. 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 Wow. Oded, man, I love you. This has been so
It's,
enlightening, interesting, fascinating. I hope I can have you back to come back and we
yes.
can talk more again. I
Yes.
definitely, Oded Vanunu, the most amazing researcher on the planet. I'm telling
Thank
you,
you.
this is a great guy. Thank you very much again. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you staying with me. This was very interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found this as interesting as I did. Man, I thought it was fascinating. I probably could have went for a few more hours, but if please like it, share it, tell your friends, and we'll look forward to having you back on the next episode of Talking Cloud. Thanks so very much.